Let's take you now to Bryanston, where the funeral service of late South African ambassador to Algeria, Billy Masetlha, is currently underway at the Bryanston Methodist Church, north of Johannesburg.
True to its claim of being a caring organization, if we are to win this promising to be a tough election, we shall do so in the spirit of anti-factionalism and anti-corruption, which Comrade Billy family stood for. Let me conclude by thanking my friends I have established in the course of our work to realize this funeral we are conducting today. We have Comrade Admiral Mudimo, Ambassador Supamloy, Jabungwenya, Paul Langa, Kehla Shubane, Thabo Kubu, Buddha Tsotetsi, Fiso Pretorius. We wouldn't have had any dull moment with Comrade Keed Sitole among ourselves. Fare thee well to a friend, comrade, husband, father, uncle, and a grandfather. So, bonana kolizayo. Long live the undying spirit of Comrade Billy Masetlha. Long live. Aluta. Mata.
It's Billy here, it's Billy there. It's Billy all over. Leaders are dealers of hope. Hope is the prerequisite of our material condition. Without hope, we are dead. Billy inspired hope wherever he was. I therefore now invite Dade Amos Masondo, Sazim, Nusas, Trayo, Nayo, Bajel mfana kithi. Bajel. Matla, all power. Program director, leaders of faith-based organizations, the Masetlha and Gupega family, President Mtlante and Gugu Mtlante, the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade William Balula, Speaker Nosvie Mapisa Ngagula, Charles Ngagula, Minister Mutsecha, and Professor. Comrades and friends. Ngwame Nkrumah in his book, Africa Must Unite, says that, quote, world peace is not possible without the complete liquidation of colonization and the total liberation of peoples everywhere. There must come an end to all forms of exploitation and oppression of man by man, of nation by nation. There must come an end to war. There must result peaceful coexistence and the prosperity and happiness of all mankind, close quote. He continues to say, quote, the greatest danger at present facing Africa is neo-colonialism and its major
All right, unfortunately, we lost the picture to the live visuals of the funeral service of the late Billy Masetlha. It's currently taking place in Bryanston. That was Amos Masondo, who was just taking the podium, and after which we'll hear from the Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Mr. Thabang Makwetla, all paying their tributes to the fallen hero. All right, let's now take you back to the funeral service.
Of course, if we do not know our history, if we do not know where we come from, we will not know where we are, and will not be able to forecast on what is likely to happen as we move to the future. Of course, Program Director, it is extremely difficult to narrate the story of Billy Masetlha in a few pages, but I believe that this brief tribute may add some value in what has been said and will be said here and elsewhere. Program Director, I met Billy Masetlha in the South African student movement, SABC. I joined SABC at Skanondwana High School in 1972. The spark had been lit by one Thomas Mantada, our English teacher, and led by individuals like Vusukumalo and Tom Dlela and Omoyane. SABC had been established as a voice of secondary and high school body to represent learners, articulate their grievances, and to foster contact among students. It had been initially known as the African Student Movement, ASM. Amongst its earlier leaders were individuals like Mate Diseko, who was one of the youngest persons to be served with the burning order. Around 1973, I was approached by Joe Malibede Mlukeng to join and assist a team of young people who were embarking in a process of reviving the South African student movement. Joe at the time was part of the local cultural organization called Ekukanyeni Cultural Youth Organization, Kosnawan, an affiliate of the youth organization known as the Transvaal Youth Organization Trio, which was part of the National Youth Organization, NAYO, not to be confused with the Natal Youth Organization, NYO. Itself, NYO, was an affiliate of NAYO. Joe at the time was the president of NAYO. NAYO leadership, Joe Mlukeng, Sandile Mfenyane, Begilanga, Koto Duwa Mlotsane, Mpakama Mbete, Tato Bereng, and so on, worked closely with and jointly mentored the South African student movement leadership. At school, Kanondwana, Tom Mantata kept on nudging us in the right direction. Ekukanyeni Cultural Youth Club, where I first met Joe Mlukeng, was a local organization and a local platform. It operated from and undertook its activity at a lower primary school there called Emaweni Lower Primary School. Program Director, at a meeting of SABC at Orlando TOCC, constituted of amongst other students who came from Skanondwana High, Morris Isaacson, Orlando High, and others, were able to elect the following people. Mefi Murube, myself as the Deputy Secretary of, to Mefi Murube was the Secretary. Other people who were part of the team were Billy Masetlha, Mpafi, Dr. Muloto, and others. Later, in terms of the Constitution, the Executive Committee co-opted the following persons: Diego Elias Masinga and Super Muloi. One of our urgent tasks at the time was to organize and constitute SASM branches in different parts of the country. We prioritized the Eastern Cape and Natal. We then went to Natal, where we had a consultative meeting with the NYO and STAM students in Wamashu. This was followed by a visit I undertook, having mandated to do so, to consult with Steve Biko and Dr. Mampela Rampila in King Williamstown. Billy was part of our SASM meeting that gave the mandate, as I've already indicated. Of course, this account will not be complete without mentioning the following, just to provide a context. During this period, some political prisoners got released from Robben Island, and some of these individuals were banished, banned, or simply kept under a close security, police monitoring. These individuals and their peers became creative and intervened in ways that sought not to be overly political and threatening to the state, if I may use that expression. This driven largely by the fact that the apartheid regime was extremely repressive. Their interaction was not only limited to certain sectors, but also led to the establishment of carefully arranged contacts with the youth. Program director, these individuals included, amongst others, old ANC, old SACTU, and old members of these various organizations. Amongst others, I'll single out the following: Sempoloto, Samson Doe, Rita Nzanga, Ndate Shabahu, also known as Chairman Mao, amongst the activists amongst us, and many others. Their activities included efforts to revive trading movement, especially after the Durban Pinetown strikes, the Johannesburg Germiston strikes, the Between Age strikes. We interacted with these older and more experienced revolutionaries and activists. And as expected, we were young and impatient. We wanted freedom, not tomorrow, but yesterday. Billy was part of this process. Meanwhile, the now leadership, given a security police harassment and repression, decided to cease and stop their open meetings and activities. They instead initiated the establishment of clandestine units. The security police, of course, noticed this change. They intercepted some message from Botswana, which led to large-scale raids being conducted and arrests being effected. One of the schools that got seriously affected was Boris Isaacson. Those of us who at the time were following events in the media would have noticed that the arrests and disruptions of classes by security police before 1976. This was before 16 June 1976. And individuals like William Gonyeni, Elias Masinga, either went underground or skipped the country and went into exile. Billy was also affected. Subsequently, the Nile SASM trial, the SASO BBC trial, and related other court cases took place. When in 1976, 16 June explosion occurred, it was clear that the clock could not be turned back. Clearly, the students and youth uprisings marked a point of no return. Billy again was at the center of these and related developments. This story, the life of Billy Masetlha, is a story of resistance. Program director, it is appropriate that we should salute Billy Masetlha and his generation for being part of this fascinating and inspiring story. I'm sure many of us will agree that to the fact that Billy and his contact, as has been pointed out, with causes that lasted a lifetime, remain an important component of this story of liberation. This long journey, as we speak, still continues. The struggle against imperialism and neocolonialism is far from over. Aluta! 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 Mandla!
Siyabonga Comrade Amos Masondo, the Speaker, the Speaker of the Council of Provinces. Siyabonga Comrade usitholela uthi we are used to speaking. Manje podium why usayithanda kangaka. Uyaphazamisa. Deputy Minister Thabang Makwetla, Comrade Ambi, thanks very much. Zweli Sizane, David Kutumela, Rola Masinga, June 16, 1976, a point no return. Sela nje la o Billy Masetlha. Ngaleso sikhathi bese athi naselolusha, that time that the Thabang Makwetla.
Program co-directors, the bereaved Masetlha family, Ambassador Billy Masetla's wife and son, the proxy of the Premier of Gauteng, Comrade Leboga Maile, the leadership of the tripartite alliance as led by the legendary African National Congress of South Africa, the Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps and other dignitaries at this funeral this morning, our spiritual leaders, the clergy in charge of the service this morning, the rank and file and cadres of the ANC present at this funeral this morning, members of Umkhonto Wesizwe, fellow mourners, ladies and gentlemen, program co-directors, allow me to lean on the protocol outlined by the speakers before me from this podium in the interest of time. Allow me first to pay my respects to Ambassador Masetla's family and to join those who offered their heartfelt condolences at this moment of profound sorrow in their family. Re tlile mo go tlo bokolla mo moshwaneng go ntsha bohloko bo re leng mo go bona ba gaetso. Death is part of life, but we will never get used to it, nor shall we learn to accept it, because it is a painful moment of permanent separation from those who are part of our emotional balance and stability. We are here to perform our final farewell to Comrade Billy Masetlha, and the question that looms large on our minds is, what was the meaning of his life to us and what is life going to be without him? Human beings are complex constructs, and Billy Masetlha as a person was not different. That notwithstanding, what many in the audience today can validate is that Billy Masetlha was a born leader, an unrelenting pathfinder, a brave activist, a loyal cadre, a strategic thinker, and that is all he could do, and he enjoyed it. I'm not suggesting that he was infallible, but like all great leaders, he had a big heart to rise and fall when his solutions needed to be recalibrated, leading to even bigger achievements in his life. He was a real product of his time, the Renaissance years of the ANC in the recent history post the political lull of the late 60s and early 70s. I recall fairly well that it was in January 1979 when Comrade George Gabi paid us a surprise visit at our camp at Kibashe in Angola, northern Angola, where after his address, he left us inspired, confident, and encouraged, eager to return home to fight to the end as a result of the insights he shared with us on our strengths and weaknesses as the ANC and the weakness of the apartheid regime at the time. He reassured us that we had scored tremendous advances in the effort to unbend the ANC inside the country and to have it rooted among the people again. He submitted that if it were not for the arrests that occurred around the Pretoria 12 at the time, we were going to see emerging within the mass democratic structures a practice where all the important political calendar days of the ANC were commemorated annually inside the country. This was music to our ears because when we left the country in 1976, the mere mention of the word ANC in public was unheard of. This chapter of the dynamic and dialectical renewal of the ANC in the post-1976 period is an instructive experience, in my view, which the challenge of the topical need to renew the ANC today must benefit from. The chapter Billy's political genesis became part of demonstrated that renewal is about the strategic perpetuation and reincarnation of the values and ethos of an institution which in its original form may no longer be sufficiently dynamic, but whose values can find expression and be aligned with the energies of new shoots that are thrown up by new societal energies. The exploits of Comrade George Gabi and Billy's peers are legendary in this respect. And it is for this reason that Comrade George Gabi had to be killed if this project was to be smothered. In December 1979, upon my return from training up in Russia, I was sent to a new camp of MK in northern Luanda called Kashito to be a political instructor. The training group which opened this camp was puzzling to me because it had people who I trained with before. And one among those was someone who is in the audience this morning, Comrade Tony Yengeni. But it also had others I could not place anywhere because they did not fit either one of the two categories. I was intimidated when I went for the first political class with this group because I did not know what to expect. but I was conscious that the presence in the group of members of Umkhonto Wesizwe who were trained meant that I could not just be basic in my presentation on the day. The topic for the day was the move to armed struggle, an expose of the requisite conditions thereof, and the 5 fighting factors necessary to sustain the armed struggle. A member from among the new comrades who were in that class, who I did not know, raised his hand for the opportunity to speak, and I instantly obliged. He took the floor and started confidently sharing in detail the episode of the arrest at Lilliesleaf on the afternoon of the 11th of July 1963. That input to this day is still fresh in my mind, and I later confirmed the accuracy of the account from books I subsequently read. It was the kind of stuff I had never come across in books, and the speaker tended to have been Billy Masetlha, a name that I had read many times in the media during the time of the Pretoria 12 trial in 1977. Billy had character and always enjoyed fixing things the best way he only knew how. He effortlessly enjoyed being in charge of situations. The camp in Kashito was a very small camp numerically. It only had a reinforced platoon. And on the days when there were soccer matches, it meant everybody in the camp had to be on the pitch playing, barring those who were on duty, at the guard post, the guarding post, or in the kitchen cooking. Billy was the self-appointed referee all the time. And he enjoyed handing down instructions and decisions on all of us. And when he was doing that, every weekend he would be wearing Bermudas. And he was the only person in the camp who wanted to wear his civilian clothes because he wanted to be in short pants. I stopped wearing short pants when I went to high school. And thanks for Billy for having liberated me, because if it wasn't for Billy Masetlha, I would never have worn Bermudas in my life. Billy's legs were so thin, but he never bothered and never cared about who thinks what about him. And I felt that if Billy could wear a Bermuda, I had no reason to be shy.
Well, that was Deputy Defence Minister Thabang Makwetla just sharing his fondest recollection of, the memories that he had of what the ANC called a fallen hero, I beg your pardon. And well, that was, we're going to have to cut out of that funeral service of Billy Masetlha, who was the former Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, was also the ambassador, South Africa's ambassador to Algeria.